just a couple, like two more questions. Is that okay? Um, there's a lot of interest amongst our subscriber base in early treatments for COVID-19. What are your opinions on early treatments? What is Australia using, not allowing, and what is your take on all that?
Yeah, no, again, as people say, we've things are pretty locked down in Australia from all manner of things, including what drugs doctors are allowed to prescribe, or even what doctors are allowed to talk about. So, for instance, it's illegal in Australia for a doctor to compare two different vaccines, believe it or not. So if they publicly comment and say, I think Pfizer is better than AstraZeneca, then they can be struck off. Their medical registration can be cancelled. No, and this is no joke. It's the most astonishing thing. So it's not only that they've removed all of the civil liberties of the population in terms of mandating that they must, do vaccination, that they've locked down whole states for months on end, so people are not allowed out of their houses. But they've also, done extraordinary things in gagging all doctors in Australia and actually interfering in the ability of doctors to actually make a medical decision and prescribe these medications. As I say, it's unheard of in history, but it's happened and it's real.
I mean, that just sounds crazy. Like I would want I feel like we would want doctors or experts to express their opinions.
Well, that's I think what a lot of us are asking, and it's never happened in Australian history like this before. We obviously have a group in power who believe that they have the God-given right to dictate what happens to everyone in Australia, and no one is allowed to discuss that. And so they've gagged the ability, and we don't have a constitution, of course, that gives the right to free speech. That's not in our constitution, unlike yours. So they can make it illegal for a doctor to compare, comment on vaccines to a patient. That's actually not against our constitution. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of protections, and we've usually just assumed that our politicians are benign and well-meaning, but we've walked into a situation over the last 18 months where everyone's shaking their head saying, how did this happen, and how do we now go back to normal, because we're not allowed to talk about it. So in reality, the only defense is legal action against all of these governments to try and get our rights back, because they've all been lost. And so there's a lot of legal actions that are about to be commenced around Australia by all manner of people to actually get some rights back, because we have no rights currently.
So are you going to get in trouble for doing this podcast?
Absolutely. But if you don't speak out, I mean, you are accepting the tyranny that's been imposed on you. So although you have to accept, yes, there will be consequences because they've made it illegal to do just about anything, including speak like this. And I get daily threats delivered to me, from the establishment, reinforcing that. But we have to. You're morally compelled to stand up when you think things are really wrong, and they are really wrong in Australia right now. And that, as I say, it's extraordinary. And obviously, I have to express these are all my personal views, because again, not related to any of my previous employment relationships or employers, because I'm required to do that.
Sure,
and even that
absolutely.
Doesn't entirely protect me against disciplinary action for commenting on the current situation here.
Wow.
we've been pushed into a situation none of us ever would have dreamt that we would end up in, and it's everyone's just shocked. And I was talking to a judge the other day about this, and he was just shaking his head, going, like, how did we get here? I talked to professors and doctors, and they're all shaking their heads and saying, what's happened? And how do we go back to where we were? I mean, how did we lose all our rights overnight? It is extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinary, but and frightening too. Like that's
terrifying.
It's terrifying. Well,
when you're waiting for the police to come to your door because you're talking on a podcast, or you're treating a patient, or you're giving a patient advice, what sort of a world are you living in? Certainly, what sort of a country are you?
Wait, the actual police could come to your door?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
For going on a podcast? Wow. And then they would arrest
and
you?
Even the irony is, even the police are running scared of the police action. So I'm helping a group of police who are obviously being mandated themselves, who are sort of looking at it from the perspective of a policeman, saying, what's happening? We're scared by what's happening. And when the police are scared of the powers that the government are assuming and using against the people, including the police force, I mean, that's an unheard of situation.